Imagine it's 2015 and FNAF 4 is slated to come out in just a few weeks. You're scrolling through the App Store one day when suddenly you spot it, Five Nights at Freddy's 4. It's not supposed to be out yet. Then again, Scott has a history of releasing FNAF games early and suddenly, so it's not unprecedented that FNAF 4 had just suddenly arrived. You press download and pay the $10 asking price so quickly you don't even notice that Scott Cawthon isn't listed as the developer. You boot up the game only to be greeted with this. What? On May 3rd of 2015, just under 2 months before the official release of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, a strange post showed up on Reddit. User Rage Comics for Life was browsing the iOS App Store when they found what appeared to be a knockoff FNAF game. The game's title was Five Nights at Freddy's 4, it had the exact same description that FNAF 1's App Store entry did, and many of the same exact positive reviews. The game was priced at $10, which was pretty steep. The prior FNAF games were all listed on the App Store for only $3 each. Strangest of all was the game's listed developer, the enigmatic Lazada Polodi. Most people know that Scott Cawthon is the developer of Five Nights at Freddy's, not Lazada Polodi, so this immediately raised some eyebrows. Things only got stranger from there though. One of the promotional images showed the sniper from Team Fortress 2 in the FNAF 1 office. I can't locate the exact image anymore, but it was something like this. It was completely ridiculous. Everyone in the thread began to tag Scott's Reddit account, to which the author of the post very quickly informed everyone that they had already informed Scott well before the post had been made, and that Scott had emailed them back and told him that he was on it. Now, Scott was on this, that was true. Scott was not messing around with this. He was pissed. Sure, someone was stealing his intellectual property, which is obviously not okay, but more importantly, they were ripping off his fan base, and that was not gonna fly. Scott rallied a mighty host of lawyers, who themselves collectively utilized the legal equivalent of a low-orbit ion cannon to completely nuke the fake FNAF 4 from the App Store. Not only that, they allegedly issued a subpoena to Apple to determine the IP address and the identities of the people who did this. Scott wanted to know who Lazada Polodi was, and he wanted vengeance. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, thank you. And that was basically it. We didn't hear much. I can't find any information about whether Apple released the info to Scott. If they did, I can't find any information about Scott pursuing Lazada Polodi, so I assume Scott eventually decided that having the game taken down was enough and that trying to hunt down Lazada wasn't worth the legal fees, which is probably the right call. Most people didn't download the game because it was $10 and it was taken down so quickly, and so as far as I can tell, there isn't any surviving footage of it today. However, Reddit user Blakey001 claimed to have bought the fake Five Nights at Freddy's 4. The gameplay they described was so absurd and ridiculous, most people didn't even believe them. I didn't. I assumed they were just trolling. However, it turns out that they edited their post with screenshots from the game and they did correlate everything they described prior. As a result, I find this description very credible, and while it's poorly written, the fact that it matches up to these screenshots so well is a pretty good indication that the following is accurate. So prepare yourselves, because the description of this game and the screenshots are an experience. I present to you Five Nights at Freddy's 4 by Lazada Polodi. When the player finishes downloading the game, the title is this. According to Google Translation, this reads, "Where is the hidden key to unlock the treasure in the difficult maze?" When loading the game, a picture of an upside-down teaser for FNAF 2 appears. Next, the main menu is of a My Little Pony riding Freddy Fazbear. This is the actual image. These are all the actual images. The background music consisted of blowing wind, occasional dogs barking, random doors creaking, high-pitched screams, footsteps, and a whole other assortment of random sounds. There were two options, Start and Info. The Info button leads to the following screen. The game was created with the support of iSpace Inc. Special thanks. Customers and viewers, excerpts of the song Sexy Love. Sound effects, soundbible.com, free icons, findicons.com. Pressing start leads to this screen where the player is given one of many random prompts. Things like, you must fight zombies. Are you an iPhone games fan? Game character is male or female. Do you like this game? Must you eat the square for energy? Pressing anything other than the affirmative yes answers allegedly does nothing. The correct option leads to the following screen, which ponders, how about a sword game? Ask. Finally, we're dropped into the game. It's a 2D side-scrolling platformer with us controlling Freddy Fazbear. I guess that's Freddy Fazbear. There's a health bar made of hearts, a timer labeled support, which uses percentages. It also switches fonts in the wrong spot, so the T looks all messed up. In the top right of the screen, you'll see the word newt or root. If you're unsure as to what this is, then you're a fucking idiot, because obviously it's the pause button. The game uses a tile-based engine, but every single ground tile is a poorly cropped screenshot of the Cam 1C button from FNAF. If the timer runs out, it's a game over and the player loses, but the message 146% finished so fast appears on the bottom. See these pink guys? You probably think that they're the enemies, right? Nope. And I quote, "The pink guys in the background don't do anything and are probably for decoration." In a game this barren, a character that stands out this much is a decoration. That's evil. Allegedly, everything else is trying to kill Freddy Fazbear in this game. Foxies, yes, there are multiple Foxies. Bats that you can barely see over the very dark stolen screenshot used as the background. Basically everything other than the useless pink guys. After reaching the end of the first level, there's apparently a cutscene, but the dialogue is just nonsensical lines like Timothy Dialogue 1 and such. After several meaningless messages, the game crashes and sends you back to the home screen. Apparently, tapping 10 times on the screen during gameplay would prompt a message saying, "You winner, sigh accepted. You have opened all the stages." This led the player to a screen that allowed them to select from levels 1 through 4. Of course, levels 2 and 3 didn't work. The final level did though, and upon selecting it, the player would be given the following message. What game image? Funny. This level was just more of the same, and beating it unlocked the following cutscene. Navalny Dialogue 1. The screen would then fade out as the text "You win" and "Made by DD Company" appeared. And that's it. That's apparently all that remains of the legendary Five Nights at Freddy's 4 by Lazada Polodi. The game is long removed, and while I searched pretty thoroughly, this was all I could find. If anyone somehow still has a 7-year-old iPhone with this game downloaded on it, you must reach out to me. I absolutely must see this game in action. It sounds amazing. Thanks so much for watching.